Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Building Intellia Chatbot with the help of Gemini and also Firebase with our newest technology, which is Next.js. So, in this episode, we are going to be building the whole UI. And in the next video, we are going to hook the functionalities with this UI that then it's going to be working fine and we will have a working chatbot application. So before really going into coding, I want to give you guys some of my understanding of how I am really building the front end applications and how you should think as a front end developer while you are building the app. Okay, so every developer when they are beginner, when they for example see such a UI, they think like, how can I build this, like what css style should I use to make it like centered here, to make it like this, or what should I do to like divide it in two sides and this part should have a scroll. So these things are some of the difficulties that you as a front-end developer, if you are a beginner, you might face. So in this video, I'm going to break it down for you guys. So the first thing that you need to do if you are a beginner, before starting to build a project, you should make something like an outline like this. So we have our login page, and then you have an area at the center, and then you have your content. So in this scenario, you should build like this, and then you think, okay, how can I center this div here at the center? And then how can I put my content like this in the center of this div? Right? And then in the right side, for example, in the chat UI, which is more complex than the login page, we should have like one, like an outer element component. And then inside that, we have two children, which is side by side. And then each of them has their children. And then some of them even has the automatic scroll bar. Okay. So by this way, you break them down to different components, and then you right now understand that, okay, this should be a parent component, this should be two child component, and each child there should be there's child inside that component. So by this way, you made it simple for yourself, and then you can progress. Okay, other than that, you might find yourself miserable and do not understand like how to do that. Okay. So, but when the time goes and then you build apps and apps after another, then you will feel this easy. And then on that time, you do not need to like create an outline like this. You will do that at your head and you think automatically and you understand those automatically. Okay. So in this scenario, I outlined it like this for you guys to understand better. Okay. So first thing first, we are going to work on our login page by following this pattern that you see on this UI. Okay, so for that, I'm going to create here in my app, create a new folder called login. And inside the login, we are going to create a page.tsx file, which represents our page, our login page. Okay. So now here, if I put it login page, and then if we go to our application and then go to slash login, sorry, localhost slash login, you should definitely see there is a login page right here. Okay. So for this to work, what we need to do is to follow this outline and to style this way. Okay. So how we can do that, let's go and start working on that. For this to have a high speed of development, I only copy and paste the CSS or the Tailwind codes, and then I will explain what those CSS classes are and why I'm gonna need it and why I'm using that in this scenario. Okay. So first of all, in here, I'm gonna create a section. Okay. And this section should be a wrapper around this whole page. So we are going to give that these styles. So why we need these styles? First of all, w-full should be full weight and the height should be minimum is screen, or we can even make it like height should be screen. That's also pretty okay. Flex is the display should be flex, justify center, item center. This is the way how we can center things in a screen. Okay, center things in a screen. So inside here, I'm gonna create that layout thing, this layout thing. Okay, so let's do that. For this, we are using a div, and I put the maximum width to 500 For example, if you take a look here, you think that this is 500, and the weight should be full. It means that it should fully cover the 500. And the mx margin x auto, it means that margin from this way to this way, the x-axis should be auto. When we put that, it will always be centered. And flex dash cool, justify start, item centers, and gap dash 6. What are these? These are for the alignment of the children. So we put these children inside it. Let me show you this heading one and also this login options. So those should be in a column base. This one is the first column and this is the second column. Okay, and there should be a space. This space between welcome and this side, this UI should be gap dash 6. All right. And now we are going to have our heading in the top part, and then we are going to have the two options down below. Okay. So for the heading, I will be using a heading 1. So I'm going to copy that code and I will explain what is it and how it works. So the heading 1, welcome to, is the type 2XL, which is the size of the type that I got from here. And also we have a texture secondary, which is the color of the interior part here, which is this color. This is the secondary color, the color from the next UI. And font is bold with interior. So that's how it is done. And right now, if you check this one, you see the welcome to interior is already done. So now for that two login buttons, we are going to create another component called social login component, and this will be another component that we are going to create under the components folder. And let's make it, yeah, React arrow function component, and you see that the social login component is ready. So let's import that in here. Yeah, and you see that we are importing the social login from there. Okay, inside the social login, we will have uh, basically we will have a wrapper. If you can see here, a wrapper around it to position it at center, and also a button group from Next.js, and then two buttons inside that. Okay, that's what we need to do. All right. So for that, I will be having a div, this div with positioning like this. If you can see, a div with w-full flex justify center and item center, the same way as we did early. And also we will have a button group. Okay, a button group, a component called button group, like this. Okay, button group, and we are going to import those button and button group from Next.js. Okay, so from what? From Next.js. Let me import them, and you see that we have imported button and button group from button group, only button group from Next.js. Okay, inside the button group, we need to put that two buttons of ourselves. Okay, and so should be two button. For example, here Google, and then another one should be for GitHub. Okay, Google and GitHub, like this. And let's import that from Next.js. And then if we now take a look at the UI, you should see something like this. Okay, a button group which has two sides like this. But we want something different. So first of all, for that, we need to grab the Google icon and then the GitHub icon, and then we put it in the public folder. Okay, so for that, I will export this as SVG, the Google icon and the other icon. So I'm going to export this, click export here, export it, and also click on the GitHub icon and then export it. Yeah, both of them are exported, I guess. Let's see in the folder here. So we have Google and then we have GitHub, these two. Let me view as a list. Yeah, this is Google and GitHub. So I'm gonna grab them and I will bring them in the public folder. Inside the public folder, I want to create a folder called images, and I'm gonna drag that Google and the GitHub icon directly in the images folder. And let's rename them to a proper name called Google and GitHub. Okay, like this. Now, inside here, we are going to use them as image. Okay, so we are going to basically use Next.js image. So I'm going to say next image. I imported that from Next.js/image. And then here we need to put the source. Source should be /images/google.svg. And then for the height, let's put a height of 70 pixels and then a weight of also 70 pixels because the picture is a square. See 2727, something like that. And let's put an alt also, alt to be Google icon, like this. So pretty good. And then that should be self-closing because we don't have anything inside it. Okay. And it says that this should be at the top. So why it says that it is because we have some rules here configured in the linting and in the TypeScript configuration files with the prettier and ESLint. So that one tells us to have always, to sort these things based on alphabetical order. So right now this should be height, should be, I guess it should be here, should be okay, yeah. All right, so in this scenario right now, if you take a look, uh, you can see it like this. Google has become like this, and then for the GitHub, I'm gonna add the image. Okay, and let's add it as GitHub, and here also GitHub. Sorry, just GitHub, and it has become like this. And if you take a look at the Next UI documentation for the button, if you search for the button, yeah, you see here's the button, and we have something like this. And how we are achieving that is by passing is icon only to the button. So I'm going to say is icon only, and for the second one also the same way. And now if you take a look at the UI, it has become something like this. And it's pretty near to what we need, but we need to do some little work again. So for that, in the button group, if you see that this is sort of like a border, every component in Next.js has something called variant. Variant means like different shapes of this component, okay? So in this scenario, we are gonna put it bordered. So you can see like what variants this component has by coming to the variants and putting your cursor here and pressing Control space in Mac, and I don't know really what is equivalent for Windows. You should find it. And then you can see these are the variants that you can pass. Even if you couldn't do that, you can go directly inside the component and see what this one accepts, what props this one accepts. So in that case, you can see, you can go dive deep in the TypeScript annotations for this, and then you understand it, okay? So for here, I'm going to say bordered. And as soon as I put bordered, you can see it's sort of like the same way, but we need a little bit more of padding around it. So for that padding, I need to add some little padding somewhere in the button, I guess. Okay. So here, let's have a class name and put some padding -1 around it. And you can see there is little padding around it, but uh, this should be the same way with GitHub as well. But this is pretty like tiny. So for that, there is another attribute called size, which has different sizes, SM, LG, and MD. I'm passing LG. So here also size LG. And we are good to go. So we are done with the UI development of our login page. So for the functionality, I will do that later. Right now, we are good to go with this case. Now let's go to the chat UI. We are done with this and we are here. All right. So for that, we are going to be doing that in this page, in the global page that we have. So in the UI, it's going to be the / nothing, just this page. And right here, we are going to design that. All right. So for that, we need to, again, put a section here And this section has some class names. So what are those class names? Let me copy that, and then I will explain what is that and why we are having these class names, okay? All right. So first of all, W dash full, it means that weight, the full weight, and the position is relative. We can pass it or we cannot. It's not really important because it will inherit that from the body, which is relative. And height is screen, overflow is hidden. Why I put overflow hidden? Because after all, we have some scroll bars in the children of this page, and then we need to the whole page to be always overflow hidden, and it should not allow any scroll. But inside that, the children's can have overflow of automatic or overflow of scroll. Okay. So, and then the next thing we have flex, justify start, item start, and flex no wrap. So what is this part used for? That is for this scenario, okay? So we have a flex which will put these two things side by side, this one and also this side. This side also should be inside a wrapper, which I forgot to add. This whole thing in this on the right side should be inside a wrapper. And this two is inside this flex. And justify start means that it should start from left, and then item start means it should start from top. Flex no wrap, it means that this UI will not wrap. Okay, in any case, it will not wrap. So now inside here, we need to do like the left slider part and then the right chat UI. Okay, so for that, I'm going to create two components. I'm going to say left slider UI, and then on the right side, we are going to create chat UI. Okay, so the left slider UI should have, let me have a component called left slider UI. You can name whatever you want. That's what name came to my mind. So here say I'm gonna say left, and then we are gonna import that definitely in this UI page. How I importing that? You know, I'm also again control plus space. I'm clicking that in my command in my Mac. Okay. And the next one is going to be chat UI component. We are going to create that tsx, and then I'm going to say chat UI, and we are going to import that. Okay. And now if you take a look, you can see left and chat UI side by side. And if we just put the background color in the whole page, let's see what is that. Okay, so I'm going to say bg-yellow. Let's see if that really takes the whole UI, you see. And then right now, let's work on the left slider part, and let's make sure that the left side will only take from here to here and also from top to bottom. So let's go inside the left slider and design that. Now for designing the left slider, we need to pay a closer attention of how we want the functionality to be in mobile UI and also in the desktop UI. So basically, this is the UI how we just showed it in the desktop. We didn't design how it should be in the mobile, but in a professional work area, you will definitely have the mobile UI as well. So in our scenario that we developed already this app, you see that it should have something like this. You see, there is a slider like this in the desktop UI. But if we want to check this, the same thing with the mobile UI, that you can see that this is an overlay. It's no longer a part of the UI, it's an overlay like that, okay? So we need to consider that. So how we're going to build this, let's go and do that. Okay, in here, first of all, we will consider that we will occupy from here until here, like around 280 pixels, something like that. And then we will position it relative or absolute depending to which UI the user is opening. If that is a desktop, that should be relative, but if it is a mobile device, then on that time it should be absolute. So in here, first of all, I'm going to be using something called aside. So aside is a tag, an HTML tag, which is called semantic tags, which gives us more information that yeah, this part is an aside. Okay. And inside this aside, or not even inside it, let's give this some styling. So I'm going to say class name. And for this class name, we are going to use something like this to dynamically style it, uh, dependent to different UI. Okay. So for that, we are gonna give this design. Okay. So let me copy that and let me show you guys what is going on here. All right. So we have a variable called collapse, which I didn't yet develop. But before that, let me show you guys what these parts doing. So first of all, the initial positioning of this one should be absolute, which the initial is definitely mobile. Top 0, left 0, it means to this side. And then in the MD, when it comes to MD, which is around 768 pixels. On that time, it will become relative. It will become a part of the UI, not an overlay. And then flex shrink 0, it means that this part will only take the weight that we specified for that to take. And then BG grayish, which I am gonna say BG sort of like a color. If we take a look at here, and here you see that this part should have a color, which is F9, F9, F9. We can put directly here like this, or we can add it in our Tailwind CSS configuration. And then we have transition all, duration 250, well change auto. So what are these? Transition all ensures us this is smooth UI change. You see, this is smooth UI change. And well change auto, this also gives the app this power that they knows that there will be a change with the weight of this component. And overflow x hidden, it means that we only specify this from tick to from here to here, and anything out of this will be hidden. And the height should full, it means that the height should from here to here should take the whole height. Okay. And based on the collapse variable, we will make it invisible, and its width should be 0. Or if it's not collapsed, then on that time it should be visible, and the width of this should be 290 pixels. Okay. So for that, at the moment, I will put it in a local variable, call it collapse, and then set collapse. Okay. And then use state, I'm going to be using a use state. And first of all, it should be false. It should not be collapsed. Okay. It should not be collapsed. And let's hit an enter here. And right now, if you come to this part of the UI, you see that there is an error, which definitely says that you are using a client component, but you do not use the use client directive inside the Next.js. Okay, so we are going to copy that use client and we put it at the top part of our page like this. And now you see that the left side is okay, and then we have the right side. All right, so in the left side, inside the left side, we have one header area, and then one other component, which is the search history component. Okay, so first of all, I'm gonna have that header UI right here. I'm gonna put a div here with a class name of w-full flex justify between items center. So what means that this one will be here, this one will be here, justify between, something like this. Okay, and we need to put these two buttons in here. Okay, these two buttons in here. So for that, let me show you guys how I did it. There is two buttons and there is two images for that two buttons that I will copy, and then I will explain what is going on with each of them, because we already did the same thing in the login page, so I do not want to repeat myself. So we have the image from Next.js image, and this two image should be downloaded from here, that I will do that right now. And then this one should not be right now, the functionality part. So let's just have it. I'm gonna grab this, export it. Yes, and then I'm gonna grab that one and export it. So now let's go to here. We have this two, and then let's grab them. Okay, images folder, and the group two is decider, and this is the new. Okay, The group 2, the name should be sidebar, sidebar, and this vector should be new. Okay, so if we come to this UI, you can see that we have slider icon or sidebar icon. Sidebar, sidebar. Oh no, sidebar, and then we have new with N being capital. New. New. Now if you take a look, fresh, you can see the two icons at the top. And for each of them, there should be a padding all around this area, okay? All around this area. So for that, I will do a little padding all around everything, like a one, padding one, that you can see like this. But this side also should have some padding. So padding dash 2, that will put them like this, okay? So right now, when I clicked here, it closed it. Why it closed it? Because in here we have on click and set collapse to true. And when collapse is true, then this code will be triggered and it will make it invisible. Also, the weight should be 0. Okay, so we are done with the header part, and then let's move on to the body part of this, which is the search history component. Okay, so underneath this, we are going to create a new component called search history component. Okay, I'm gonna make it a search history like this. Search history. Now let's create our component, and boom, like this. And there should be an empty line here. Nice. Here I'm going to say search history. And if you take a look at here, you see that search history is right here. But we want for the search history to take the whole space from top to bottom. Okay, from top to bottom. So for that, I'm going to say a class name of like bg dash yellow. Right now, if you see, it takes only this one, right? But we do not want just only take that part. Okay, for that to work, we're going to add this style. And now if we do the bg-yellow, you can see that still we are not taking the full height. Why is that happening? Even you see that we have the flex and flex-1, which basically should be growing. But if we come back to the lift slider UI, you can see that we have this as we do not have our parent component, which is a slide, as a flex. Okay, so for this, if even I put bg dash green, something like that, you see that it takes the whole area. But because it's not flex, then we cannot take the full area with the flex design. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go back to let's add that in here. Okay, let me add it in here. I'm gonna add flex, and then flex dash cool, justify start, items, start. Okay, and now you see that we take the whole UI. Okay, we took the whole UI like this, but the weight is the problem. Right now we are going to solve it. Okay, right now we are going to check and solve it. So now let's go back to the component called search history, and then let's see what is going on in here. So here we do not have the width as full. So we are going to add it, width as full. And now you see that we have the full height of this component. Nice. All right, so now it's time for us to create the input component. For that, I'm using the input component from Next.UI. So I'm importing that like this, input from Next.UI. And you see that we imported the input from Next.UI. And I give some padding X for the input to look way better like this. And also we should have a state for our input. Okay, so for that I'm gonna put a state const search value as AI suggests us. I'm using GitHub Copilot, and now let's import this. And when we are using use state, so we need to definitely pass the use client directive. So nice, and that's great. Then we right now uh, we have all these things aligned like this. Okay, so we have our input also. So now let's check in our UI and see how it looks. You see that it looks the same way as we need it. How I did it, we used the underlined variant and we used the size LG, and there is some styling like this. And that's pretty much it, you see. And then now below this, we should have our list item, okay? We should have our list item. For that to happen, we need to have a mock data. So I'm going to say const chats. It's going to be an array of chats. So for each array of chats, we need to have a chat ID, which is going to be something like this, blah, 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 something like this. And then we have a chat name, okay? We have a chat name like this. For example, how to build front end app, something like this. Oh, who to build, not how to build. And yeah, with this data, we can have like multiple of this search data. The ID can be one or two. That's also pretty okay. So we need how to build a backend. And for example, we should have these two chats as an example. Okay, so let's map around this and render it to the UI as we see in here. Okay, so I'm gonna say down below I'm gonna have a not even a div. Let's just map it. Okay, chats dot map, and there is an item, if you chat item, or you can say chat item. That's also pretty okay. And for each chat item, we are going to add a link because each of them should be clickable, okay? So for that, we need to use a link from Next.js link. And yeah, link requires us to have a href. And then, for example, we need to put like this slash, and then there is the ID of the chat, okay? Let me put it inside this one, and we are going to say slash, and then like this, and then the ID should be something like this, the chat ID. Okay, item.id. So it will always take us from here to here, okay? And now in also it needs a key props as well, because when we iterate through something in React, it should always have a key. And then yeah, we did it. And inside the link component, friends, there should be like an A, or like there should be anything, but here I'm gonna put an li for this. So in this scenario, I'm gonna say inside it I will pass the item dot name to see how it looks. Okay, let's see how it looks right now. So you see that right now it looks like this, but we want something like this. Okay, so for that to work, we definitely need something quite interesting. So we need to add some styling for that, okay? So for that, I will add, first of all, this style to the link component, okay? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me add a class name. And inside class name, you see that I added some styling. So what are these styling? Minimum height of this, each of them should have a minimum height of 11, which is, if we see in pixels, 44 pixels. Flex, justify start, item center. So why I did that? That's because we want that to align in the start part like this here in this side, and then remaining area should be empty at the end. And then when we hover over that, the background should be like default, and there's some padding, and there's some transition, and the duration for that. Okay, so whenever we are hovering over them, then the color of the background which changes to default, which is this color. This color is the default color. Then on that time, that should be smooth. That's for that. Okay. So now let's take a look once, see how it works right now. You see, right now it's better, right? It is way better like this. And inside here in the LI, we also need to put some styling. Okay, we need to put some styling. I'm gonna grab those styles and then let's see. So first of all, the maximum weight is 260 pixels. So why we are doing that, even if sometimes we have a chat which needs a lot of information, like build a front end, React, and React with Strappy app, something like this. And then you see that right now we only tick from here to here, and this side will be like ellipsed. If you see it, it will have an ellipsis thing. And this is the reason of that three dots at the end. And the maximum weight is 260. And then because this is an li, then we are going to say uh, list none. And then you see that it has become like this. But this should have a weight of full. So right here you see that we have something like this. And now if we take a look at here, you see that it is like this. Even it was not fully, so I can have it to not become fully. Let me go back and let's remove that w dash full. And instead of that, let's add some rounded or some border radius of around XL. And now if you see, it is the way that we want. Okay, it is the way that we want. All right. So yeah, so that is how we built it. And right now, and also if let's ask ChatGPT to give us a hundred of chats, and then we can see if we have still the scroll bar or not. Okay, I have this chat array. Please give me this chat with 50 items. 50 is also okay in it. And let's wait a little bit. Yeah, and let's copy that and let's put it in here. And yeah, so we are not exporting that, and that should be good. And right now you see, my friends, that we have this chat like this. Pretty good, pretty good. There are some little fixes. For example, I like this one to be fully instead of this way. And also, yeah, so and also I guess we can have the search history at the top and then this side only to be scrollable, not the search history to be scrollable. So let's fix that. For that, we might consider to have a wrapper around this area, a wrapper around this chat area, which I'm gonna call it a UL. And we are gonna put all the chats inside that UL. And we are gonna give that a class name that I'm gonna copy right now and we'll explain it. Okay. Yep. If you see that right now we have w dash full, it's relative again, height is full, overflow y is auto again, the same way as we did in the top part, overflow x is hidden, and then some padding around it. And right now, if you take a look at this, you can see that we only have the scroll at the bottom part, only the items got its scroll, and this side is also weight is fully. And yeah, it looks good. We are done with the slider section. There's one tiny relationship between the slider and the chat part, which I'm going to show you, and then we are going to go start with the chat. Okay. So for that, if you guys click in here, you can see that it's closed. But how we can open that? If you take a look at the current implementation, if you close this, you can see that there is the same way, the same icon in the chat UI. When we click on that, it will again be open. So we need to have the same button in the chat UI whenever the slider is closed. Okay, whenever the slider is closed. So for this, definitely we need to have a global state. This state will not work. The state of left slider. This state will not work because we need to have the state which works in both components, in the left slider component and also in the chat component, because we need to change it from two sources, okay? Chat and also left slider. So now let's move on to the chat and do this stuff. All right, so for the chat UI, let's start to build it. If you can see in the chat UI, we have three parts, and that is going to be the header part, and then the body part, and then the chat part, okay? So in that case, first of all, in here, I'm going to be having a section again. I love using sections. I don't know why, because that's a semantic element. Maybe that's the reason. And then we are gonna have this style, and I'm gonna explain what is that style saying us, okay? So first of all, flex dash one, flex cool, height full, and p3. Flex dash one ensures that we have this UI, okay? Let me show you. We have this UI from here to here, and then the rest, which is the white space. The rest should be fully occupied by the chat UI. That's what Flex One does. Flex One behind the scenes is Flex dash one is like this, which means Flex dash growth, and then the Flex dash shrink and stuff. You can read about it with the Flex CSS Flex. Okay. So and then there is the Flex dash cool, which means we will have one at the top and one the body and one the bottom. Okay. So for that, and then we have height dash full, and then some padding around it, some little padding all around it. Okay. And in here, I'm gonna say like header, chat header, or chat head. Let's name it chat head, which is gonna be the header side. And let's create that component, and let's import that component, and let's say it head or yet. It's okay to say it head or yet. Now, how that part should be is like this. You will have this way, like in Telia, and this icon, like this, or you have like this, and then we have a drop down here. Whenever we click on that, it will pop up the logout button, and then yeah, when we click here, this part should be open. So these things are all the things that we need to do in the head. Okay, so for that, I'm going to say class name flex w dash full justify just between, and items is going to be center. That's what we need to do. Okay, so there should be two sides for this. One is this side, and the other is the other side. So for the left side, I'm going to say a div with class name of flex justify center, items also center, and then there should be a gap. Okay, gap dash one. And what is this part? That should be for this one. In here, this should be centered, and also there's one gap here, and then this one and this one. That's what we need to do right now, okay? So for this to do, I'm only copying the old code that we had with the button on the slider, which I'm gonna grabbing from here. And you can see this is gonna be the button, which you are gonna import it, and the image from Next.js image. Yeah. And for this, we definitely need, as I said, a global state for that. So for that, I think we need to create something called context, okay? Contexts. So for that, I'm going to create like a folder called contexts. And then within the contexts, I am going to create the chat context .tsx. Let's create it like chat context.tsx. And now let's create a context here, okay? Let's create a context. For that, we are going to say chat context is equal to create context, which we are going to bring that from React create context. And it takes a default value, an initial value here, which I'm going to say, instead of, I'm going to say collapse, okay? It's going to be false by default. And then there's set collapse, okay, is going to be a function with boolean of collapse, and that's going to be the default. Okay, that's going to be the default. And then we are going to export const chat context provider, because context is exposed with provider, and this provider takes a children, my friend. Every provider or every wrapper element in React, or wrapper component in React, takes the children and return the children with some data. Okay, so for that we are going to return something like that. We are going to return sorry, this should be capital. Okay, chat context should be chat context dot provider, and like this. And it should have a value, my friends. The value should be collapse and set collapse. Okay, so for that I will need to have a state in here, const here should be collapse and set collapse, like this. And then a children should be returned inside this. Okay, like this. And then the value should be collapse and set collapse. Pretty much it, you see. And then there is it says that the type, this one is not possible, you know, because TypeScript understands the set collapse as this type, but we determined it like this. But we say that the type should be like this. Here we say it like this. So let's add a type also, an interface. So let me have this one as a command at the top, not to forget it. So I'm gonna say interface chat context type. Okay, and then in here we are gonna say collapse and set. For the set collapse, instead of instead of this, we are gonna use React's code called dispatch. It's a type coming from React. It's a dispatch, means a function which dispatches changes in the state. And then set state action is also the same thing, coming from React. Now we need to put it as, and then we pass the type, and that's going to be good. And right here you see that it's going to be a boolean, and this is the same way. So here we can just only pass nothing. It's all pretty okay. And then we have our children. Binding element children implicitly has type any. So here we need to also put like props with children. This is also coming from React. And yeah, so here we have the value. The value should not be passed like this, sorry. Should be passed as an object which has collapse and set collapse as its value. And now we have our chat context. So let's use the chat context in the toppest part of our app, which is going to be this layout. Okay, so in underneath this provider thing, I'm gonna put it so chat provider, and this we can use any libraries like Zustand as well, but in this case I just want it to be pure with React. Okay, so the chat provider also should be because we are using use state, it should be use client as Next.js asks us. And now instead of we can use set collapse from context. So for that I need to export something, export use chat. Okay, and this use chat should be a function. Okay, this use chat export const use chat should be a function which basically uses the context. Okay, it's going to be this. We are going to use a React hook called use context, and this use context will use the chat context, and if the context gives us data, then we return the data. Otherwise we don't. Otherwise we say that there's a problem. Okay, so after that we'll use chat. Okay, so in here I'm going to say use chat const, and like this say use chat, and this chat returns the chat context which has set collapse and then the collapse value inside itself. Okay, because we are using a hook, so we need to add the use client directive as well. Client, my friend. Okay. And pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. Now, if I click in here, if I go back, if I click in here, if I oh, the reason that we are not seeing, maybe that's because this class name works. So now that our collapse is not true, okay, that it's not true, that's why it's hidden. So for that to work, we need to go back to this left slider history. We are going to remove this, but instead we are going to use something else. We are going to use our use chat. And in here we have the collapse and set collapse, okay? Now, because we will have this, if I click, you see that we have this. But if I click, it opens, it closed, it opens, closed. Nice, nice, nice. So now we are done with the left side. Not really done with the left side because we need to have that title, that chat with Intellia title. I only add the Intellia, not chat with Intellia. That's pretty okay, okay? So I'm gonna say Intellia. That's what we only need. So text should be secondary. And now if you take a look at it in here, you see that it's Intellia like this. Pretty cool and pretty beautiful. So in the right side, there should be some design that we need to do right now. So it should be here, right side, okay. In the right side here is something we call avatar, okay. And we need to use something like this. And also we need to have a drop down there as well. So all these things, okay. So first of all, we need to check if we have drop downs already installed or not. So I'm gonna go to the packages.json and see if we have the drop down. We don't have the drop down, so for that I need to install the drop down, okay. And say like this, pnpm add, yeah. Now that drop down is installed, let's go to the chat head, and in the chat head, you can see that we have such a thing, the avatar and also the logout, which pops up as a drop down. So one thing I forgot is to check if we have avatar or not. I think we don't have avatar as well, so I need to install that one as well, okay? So I'm gonna say uh, instead of drop down, let's use avatar and wait for that as well. Nice. The avatar is also installed. Now let's move on and let's see how we can implement it. Let's go to the drop down in the Next.js component, and you can see that we have something like this. And I want the same way. So I go to this code and I just copy this code and I want to bring it in here. Drop down, and it doesn't work, so I need to import it like this. Sometimes the automatic import doesn't work. So we imported that like this. And if we take a look right now, our UI, it looks like this. But we don't want that, right? So we want our button to be something different. So what it should be an avatar. We are going to use an avatar for that. So for that, we're going to have this code, which I'm going to explain that for in a moment for you. So that should be this. There should be a button, which is icon only, okay? And the rounded is full. And this one not needed right now. And then the name, I'm going to say the name should be A, for example, okay? And then we need to bring the avatar so it doesn't automatically installs it. So I'm going to bring that, let's see, like this. I'm going to copy this and paste it down below. We only need avatar from that. And pretty good. It should be uppercase, BG should be secondary, and text should be wide. And then when we integrate it, then on that time we need to get this data from user's name. And right now, if you take a look at the UI, it should be, yeah, the same way. And then right now, if you click, it will happen to be like this. And then from all these things, I will only take this delete one, and then we will rename it to sign out. Okay, so I'm gonna remove the others, and let's rename this to sign out, and that's it. That's what we need. And now you see we have the sign out. So that's from the header part, and let's move on to the chat body. Okay, coming back to the chat UI, let's create another component called chat body, and this component should be in here with that way. Let's import this. All right, so now when we start on the chat body part, let's just do some little style like flex. It should be flex dash one. And then if you see right now, it clearly, right, for example, let me show you, it takes the whole height. And then let's right now add another part called chat input. Okay, chat input. Let's add chat input.tsx file. And this is, let's put that to, let's add it a component for that, and this is going to be input. And let's add this chat input at the end of our chat UI, and like this. And then you would see that the chat body only takes that side, and chat input takes the bottom part. And this chat UI, this chat body should be scrollable. Okay. So let's first of all move on and then design the chat input, and then lastly we are going to design the chat itself. Okay, so let's move on, and for the chat input we should have a class name w-full flex-0, and then minimum should be like a margin button, something like that. mb that should be something like this, so it should have some space from bottom. And also there, it should have some padding -4 or something from all around it. And also it should have a padding -y of around 8, a little bit, yeah, like this. Okay, and inside here, we are going to create another div. So this div will have a maximum width, because as you can see that this part with that grayish color has its specific width from here to here, and it always do not take the full height, the full weight. So for that reason, we are going to have a maximum weight for this, and the maximum weight will be something like this. So what it says that maximum weight is 95% in mobile devices, and when it comes a little bit bigger, it's 90, and when it comes a little bit more bigger, 80%, and in large screen, it's going to be 60% of the whole screen. And that's what you can see in this screen right here. If I'm making that bigger, you can see that it becomes smaller. Okay, and yeah, so that's it. And then after that, what we need to add is the background for that. So the background should be something called F9, F9, and F9 and F9, something like that. And yeah, so also some rounded stuff and some border stuff, as you can see here. So I'm gonna copy the whole thing, and we can discuss about it. Okay. Yeah, so you can see that again, it needs the flex because we need to put the input inside it. And then the border should be default. Default is the grayish border in the next UI. And then you have some padding, which is space between this and this, and some overflow hidden. And then there's some rounded, as you can see, the corners are rounded. So that's what we need to do. And inside here right now, we need to have an input, okay? And the input should be like this. So we have an input, and we basically have an input reference. So that's going to be for letter. I'm not going to do that right now. And then an on key handler. So in case here we click on it, and then it should call some API. And after that, we need to have a button on the right side, this for this icon, okay, for that icon. So we need to have it a button. I'm not going to explain this part because this is something repetitive many times, and we are not going to do the on-click handling right now. So yeah, so this should not be slider icon. I will import the icon from here. This should be the icon. So let's export it, and I'm gonna bring that icon here. Okay, so let's open this, and I'm gonna grab that icon, and let's put it right here. Let's make it enter, something like that. I name it enter. It's okay, whatever you name it. So I'm gonna say enter. And now if we take a look in our UI, you see that we designed our chat part, and then this is that little thing. So I'm gonna make it 30 pixels for it to look a little bit bigger. And right now we are done with the chat UI part. And the only thing that we need to do is to make this area for our chat. If, for example, I ask how to build an AI chatbot. Yeah, and you can see that the scroll bar appeared on the right side, and it scrolls like this. So we need to have that part done instead of like the whole design, because the whole design needs to have the question and answer thing. So right now I'm gonna copy this text, and then we are gonna make it to be scrollable. That's the only thing that we are gonna do in this session. So this component, this div in here should have some styling, which I'm gonna copy and paste it right now. You can see that clearly what's going on with this. So I'm gonna remove this PG slit thing, and then you guys can see that clearly. The body, and then let's remove this flex one here. And now if you check this thing, you can see that we have this UI. The body is from there to down below, and then right to the whole right. Okay, and let's put some text here. So I'm gonna copy that text, let's put that whole text in here, and let's see it right now. Yeah, right now it didn't because it is tiny. So let's just give it some style. Not like this, like here. Let's have it heading one, and let's paste that inside that heading one, and let's style that in heading one, class name text-3xl, something like this. And you see that whenever the text goes beyond out of this screen, this part is scrollable, and that's because of the relative style and then the overflow y auto, and that's it. So yeah, we are in until this point, we are going to stop it. And if even if you are taking a look at this in the mobile side, that's going to be pretty the same as what we have for the main application that we have already built. Yeah, so I'm going to see you in the next video, creating the login and authentication things, and also creating our tables with Firebase and connecting that to the front end. All right. So see you soon. Happy coding.